ﷺ said that ihsan is that you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as though you see Him, but though you cannot see Him, He sees you. So in that, the Prophet ﷺ referred to 3 stages of working or seeking Allah Azza wa Jalla. The first is the maqam of al-mutalaba, when he says, أَن تَعْبُدَ اللَّهِ, and you worship Allah Azza wa Jalla. Seek Allah through worship. And keep doing that until you reach the level of muraqabah, which is the last part of the hadith. إِلَّا تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. To know that Allah Azza wa Jalla, إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَلَيْكُمْ رَقِيبًا. Worship Allah as though you know Allah Azza wa Jalla is observing you. And if you can go higher than that and reach the maqam of al-mushahada, and ta'bud Allah كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ, then do that. But all 3 levels are levels of ihsan. أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك. So we'll continue from there. That's where we stopped. So Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam continued to ask the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam questions. So he said, فَأَخْبِرْنِي عَنِ السَّاعَةِ. Tell me about the sa'a. Tell me about the hour. The hour refers to the last day, or the moment the world comes to an end. So tell me about the ending of the world. Now, we mentioned earlier that Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam is coming to encourage the companions to now ask the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam questions. He started out by showing them how to ask. And the way he did it was to ask about the religion in general. So he, through his questions, got the Prophet ﷺ to give a summary of the entire religion of Islam. To give a summary of Islam in general, that if this summary is to be observed, we can gain a very, very general understanding of the religion. And in doing that, he asked about Islam, Iman, Ihsan, and then he asked about the Sa'ah, which indicates that knowledge of the Sa'ah, knowledge of the last day, knowledge of the times in which we are living in is an important and an essential part of the religion. And that knowledge of the last day is primary in our understanding of the religion, which is something that the believers must be connected with. We must always have an understanding and awareness of the times in which we are living. Muslims we can't bury our heads in the sand and not know what is happening around us. Knowledge of what's happening around us, knowledge of the events that are happening around us, knowledge of the trends that are spreading among people is essential to the Iman, to the consciousness of a Muslim. We cannot ignore that. We must know the times. And we must observe the times from the spectacle of the Akhirah. What is happening now? What does that mean in terms of where we are with relation to the Akhirah? Because it determines how we act. How are Muslims to act at certain times? How are different Muslims, different levels of Muslims, with different responsibilities? How is the Muslim as a parent? How is the Muslim as an individual? How is the Muslim as a father? How is the Muslim as a mother? How is the Muslim as a husband and a wife? And how is the Muslim as a leader? How is the Muslim as the Imam of a dawla? How is every Muslim to act at a certain time? If we don't observe the time, then we don't know how to act. So at certain times, for example, things are going to be so bad that the Prophet ﷺ said the best property of a mu'min will be a sheep. That he follows that sheep into the mountains and that he spends all day just taking care of that sheep. That's a different time than engaging with people. There's certain ahadith that speaks about not locking yourself away. The Prophet ﷺ said the believer is not the one who keeps himself away from the people, but it is the one who mixes with the people and endure whatever sufferings come with that. Meaning, what time is that relating to? Is that hadith general for all times? Or is it for a particular time? When do we know when that time is over? For example, how do we go about doing amr bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar? All of this, the how of acting is determined by the time that we are living in. And there are certain times where the ulama, they would even say that don't even go and teach or do anything. Just keep to yourself, be at home. Anybody comes to learn, teach them, but don't go out. Don't go out teaching people anything. There are times like that. In the Muqaddimah, in the introduction to Al-Aqidat al-Wusta, the Sharh Al-Aqidat al-Wusta by Imam al-Sanusi rahimahullah, he said that the time is so bad. It's so bad, this is his time, he died in 795 Hijriya, that if there weren't a few good men around that are observable, people who are good and want to learn, I would even give a fatwa that it's haram for ulama to go and teach in book. 795 Hijriya. What about now? So I'm not telling scholars, I'm not saying this is not a pronouncement to say that this is the time in which we shouldn't teach. What I'm trying to say is observe your time so you know how to act. So Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, in asking essential questions to get a general understanding of the religion, inserted the question about Sa'ah to indicate the importance of knowing your times with relation to the akhirah. So he said, أخبرني عن الساعة. Tell me about the Sa'ah. The Prophet ﷺ said, ما المسؤول عنها بأعلم من السائل. The one asked does not know more than the one who is asking. In this regard, we said that when we explained, for example, earlier in the hadith, when Jibreel came and he sat next to the Prophet ﷺ and he touched him and he came into his personal space and all of that, the point of doing all of that was to teach the companions how a teacher should react to a student having bad adab. Similar here, Jibreel is asking a question to the Prophet ﷺ so that the response from the Prophet ﷺ will teach the companions how they must act when they become teachers. And that is, if you don't know the answer to a question, don't even attempt to answer it. If you don't know the answer to the question, don't attend the mufti. If you don't know the fatwa, then don't give a fatwa. And alim, if you don't know the answer to the question, do not give an answer to the question. And when we say don't know, we're including that you forgot. Because ulama will forget. Right? That's normal. Anybody who studied Islam properly for a long time, if you mix with them, they'll always tell you they forget. Sometimes you read a book, you study it completely. You study it 2 times, 3 times with different teachers. And then somebody asks you a question and you don't remember the answer at all. And when you go to research it, you find it in a book that you studied 3 times and it's like the first time you're seeing it in them. It's like, I studied it so many times. So, if you don't remember, say you don't remember. If you remember something, you need to look back at the details, say I need to research or I need to revise. And the questioner needs to allow the ulama to do this. It's not a sign. If there's a teacher who is not somebody very experienced, the very experienced teacher, because they're teaching for a long time and they're reviewing every day and people are asking questions every day and they've been revising to answer questions for a long time, 20, 30, 40 years, a lot of it sticks. Right? A lot of it sticks in their minds. But when you see young teachers, inexperienced, if they're answering every single question and you give them don't, and that's a bad sign. It's not a good sign. Don't walk away thinking, oh, this is a sign of a very knowledgeable. No. That is a sign of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. He said, if somebody answers every question they get from him, no, he's a crazy person. There's a type of craziness involved with answering everything that somebody asks you. So, Abdurrahman ibn Abi Layla radiallahu anhu said that I interacted with, I saw 120 of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. None of them would answer questions until the question would bounce around one after the other from one companion. He would say, ask somebody else. They'll go to you, say ask somebody else. They'll go to the ask somebody else. Each one of them will refer the questioner to somebody else until it comes back to the first person. The questioner will be passed around by 120 persons before somebody is brave enough to answer that question. So, if the companions radiallahu ta'ala anhum are not answering questions of religion, who is any more knowledgeable than the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And they used to be happy when the opportunity comes and they say, I don't know, they used to be very happy. It would make sense that shukr and stuff like that. Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhum, there are many reports where somebody would ask him a question, and finally a question comes that he doesn't know the answer, he would make such that shukr and he would be very happy and alhamdulillah, the day comes that I can say I don't know. So saying I don't know, there's a hadith that says, there's a weak hadith that says, وَالنِّصْفُ الْعِلْمِ. It is half of knowledge to say I don't know. Why? Because when you can admit you don't know, how do you know? If you don't know something, how do you get to know it? Study. So it's half of knowledge is that it becomes the motivation that caused you to then study. So nisful ilm is la adri. I don't know, that's half of knowledge. If somebody always answers a question, the ulama say that the chances of him making mistakes are 100%. Because if somebody's always answering, just on the top of the mind like that, then it means that there's no escaping from now saying something that is incorrect. Because you're not taking your time to go revise, study. One of the things in ifta, when you do ifta, the teachers will tell you that unless it's one of those very, very, very common questions, if you're asked a question and you think you know it, like 100% in your mind, don't put it down. Don't write it. Don't answer a question until you see it in a book. You just make sure that when you're answering a question, the ibarah, and you saw it. Unless it's like one of those very normal questions. Like if somebody asks how many times you wipe your head in wudu for the Shafi'i school, say 3 times. Those very normal, everyday type of things. But other than that, even if you know it, just verify. And that's how you keep safe. Keep yourself safe. Don't say things without not being extremely sure about what you're saying. So the muftis, they say the muftis come between the servants of Allah and Allah. The ordinary people, when you say ordinary, the people who are not technically learned in the religion, who are just asking questions from the ulama and implementing, and they are placing a high level of trust in the ulama who are supposed to tell them what to do, what not to do. So they say that the mufti, you are coming between Allah and His servants. So be very careful of how you come in between. And it's not an easy thing to be answering questions about the religion. Some of the ulama, they say if somebody asks to be asked, don't ask him. If somebody goes around the place and asks to be asked, goes around saying, you guys have any questions, ask me, I can answer any of that. No. We're good. And if it comes to me and say, you have any questions about religion, ask me, I can understand. Now we're good. Don't ask that person. And anybody who makes your students of ilm who you're connected with, just ask them. Ask them, how did your teachers ask them? The sentence, I don't know, let me check back, I have to revise, I'll get back to you next week. These type of answers are the most common answers among ulama. If you go and study, we're talking about ulama, we're talking about people with grey beards who've been studying for 60, 70 years of their lives. All they know is study. Those types of people, hardly do they give you an answer. Hardly would they give you an answer. These are the most qualified people. The expected thing. When people ask questions and you refer to your ulama, the expected answer is, I'll get back to you, I don't know, let me check back. Stuff like that. When they reply right away, when one of our teachers replies right away, that stuns us because that's going against the norm. Real ulama don't answer questions just off the cuff. So somebody just shooting answers like that is or without thinking. If you're not seeing them deliberately, really thinking, and even when they answer with a high level of caution, those are not people don't direct your questions to those people. There are many times, like you'd even hear some people, like speakers, they speak and somebody gives them a question and they'll say this stuns me beyond, like I can't even, I'm stunned when somebody says, oh, I've never heard that before, and then give an answer. You're just telling me you never heard it before. You're just saying that it's a brand new thing to you, you've never heard about it ever before, but then 2 seconds after you have an answer to give. Like those kind of things are stunning, but it happens a lot. You see people saying, oh really? Can't be. It's like, oh, if you say, oh really, then you're not supposed to afterwards say can't be. I mean, that's not a general rule, it depends on the situation. But I'm saying it's hard. If you're now hearing something, how can you then deny afterwards or affirm? You're now hearing about it. Go study and then come back with an answer. So, Jibreel ﷺ asked the question so that the Prophet ﷺ can show the companions that even the Prophet, the Prophet ﷺ, who was the most knowledgeable of this ummah, can say the questioner, the one questioned, doesn't know the answer more than the one who was asking the question. So, مَا الْمَسْئُولُ عَنْهَا بِأَعْلَمِ مِنَ السَّائِلِ. So then Jibreel ﷺ said, فَأَخْبِرْنِي عَنْ أَمَارَاتِهَا. So then tell me about the signs. If you don't know the exact time of the hour, what are the signs of the hour? The signs of the hour are many. There are major signs, there are minor signs. There's an entire literary genre of in the religion about amarat as-sa'ah or isharat as-sa'ah, the signs of the last hour. The Prophet ﷺ responded with a few of the signs. So the Prophet ﷺ said, أَنْ تَلِدَ الْأَمَةُ رَبَّتَهَا. The first sign he mentioned is that you will see the slave woman giving birth to her master. This can be interpreted either literally or figuratively. If we look at it literally, if you look at the words mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ and take them at face value, when we say take them at face value, looking at their apparent meaning and interpreting it along with the apparent meaning, there are several interpretations that are possible. So, أَنْ تَلِدَ الْأَمَةُ رَبَّتَهَا, that a slave woman will give birth to her master. If we look at the Dhahir, certain interpretations are possible. The third interpretation is that, again, if we look at the hadith literally, a third possible interpretation is that the Prophet ﷺ is saying that slaves at one point in this ummah, at one point in the history of the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, slaves will become leaders. That happened during the Mamluk period, the Mamalik that became the king, one of the dynasties in the history of Islamic leadership. The Mamalik were slaves who then they inherited the seats of power. So that's one interpretation. And then some of the ulama say that the hadith is not to be interpreted literally. It's a metaphor. You say, أَنْ تَلِدَ الْأَمَةُ رَبَّتَهَا, the slave woman will give birth to her master. It's a metaphor for the widespread disrespect of children. The children are going to become so bad and so disrespectful to parents and so undutiful and unkind to their parents that they treat them the way people would treat slaves. Not the way people are supposed to, but the way people did treat slaves. So that's one of the hadith. And that's one of the interpretations. And this interpretation is supported by other narrations of the hadith that says al-mar'a instead of al-ama. Instead of an talid al-ama rabbataha, other narration says an talid al-mar'atu rabbataha, that a woman will give birth to her master. Instead of the slave woman will give birth to her master. So this narration of al-mar'a instead of al-ama supports the interpretation that it is not literal, but it's figurative, and it's really speaking about the widespread disrespect of children. There's another hadith that supports that meaning, in which the Prophet ﷺ said, "La taqumu sa'a," that the end times will not come, or the last day will not come, until children become harsh, and then children become angry, and children become undutiful, not only to their parents but to elders in general. So that's one, and that's another interpretation of the hadith. So the Prophet ﷺ said, أن تلد الأمة ربتها وأن ترى الحفاة العراة العالة رعاء الشاء يتطاولون في البنيان, and that you will see the bare-feeted, the people who are not accustomed to shoes, the naked, the destitute. Some people say here that it's specifically speaking about the Arabs, based on some of the descriptions in this hadith, and based on some of the other narrations of the same hadith, that it's specifically speaking about the Arabs. And you will see the destitute Bedouin Arabs racing to build tall buildings. Some of the ulama say that it's not speaking about the Arabs in particular, but it's generally saying that the people who are ruled, the lowest classes of people, would eventually become the leaders of people. That this is something that's going to happen. As a sign of the last day, is that the lowest of people, the lowly and nobodies, are going to become the leaders of great nations. You're going to become the leaders of people. So either it's speaking about the Arabs in particular, or it's speaking about people in general. So if we are to take the hadith again, if we were to take this sentence literally and interpret it literally, then it is literally saying that the destitute will become the leaders of people, and destitute here means so destitute, so poor that they were the people who used to walk around barefooted, and the people who used to be naked, and the people who used to, they would eventually become the leaders, and they would literally compete with each other to build and to erect tall buildings. Some of the ulama say that the hadith, again, is not literal, but it's a metaphor for the general inversion of things. Things will flip around. Like the world would run, and then what used to be normal would completely change to the opposites, and that will be a sign of the last day. So it's not speaking specifically about destitute people becoming leaders, but it's speaking about the inqilab al-umur, which is a general upturning of things. And if we observe the world today, for example, we'll find this happening at many levels. If you look, for example, certain social phenomena that are happening today, where things are flipping completely. You have men becoming like women, women becoming like men. And you have, if you look at the geopolitics and the shift of power from east to west, and these type of things, if you look at every level, from a broad level to a lower level, you find that there's a complete inversion of things. Like, even at very minute levels, if you go to a place and you want orange juice, you can't say the word orange juice. If you go to buy orange juice from a shop, you say, give me orange juice, you would not get orange juice. Right? You'll get some sort of fake water and some sort of fake chemical. If you actually want orange juice, you gotta tell the person, no, I want real, fresh, the actual fruit. There's a bunch of description. So it's like the opposite, where even the real thing now, you have to describe it in a hard to get it. The fake thing is what? is immediately thought of when you mention a certain name. Like that's how far things have completely changed. So we're eating fake food and real food is more expensive, more difficult to have. We're wearing fake material clothing to actually get real materials hard. There's a complete changing in the way things work in the world. And so some of the ulama say that is the meaning of the hadith, that things will flip. But again, majority of them say that the meaning is the literal meaning, that the destitute will become the leaders, and more specifically, the destitute Arabs will become the leaders of people, and they will race to build tall buildings. And it's not even a race among each other. And sometimes, most likely, or the most common thing, it's a competition among different ones. But now we're at a place where it's a competition with themselves. Like the people who build the Burj Khalifa is now themselves going to build one higher. So we build the highest building in the world. Now we ourselves are going to compete with ourselves to build a bigger building than the one that we built. Like that's the level that we are at. And from other narrations that relate to this, not other narrations of the same hadith, just other narrations, other ahadith, that when we were to observe other ahadith, it also indicates that not only will these people become leaders, they will become meaning oppressive leaders. They'll become very harsh. They're not going to lead properly. They become volume. They're going to be unjust, wicked, harsh leaders. And not only will they become wicked, harsh leaders and compete in the dunya, but they will also compete to destroy the deen. So other narrations indicate not only will they build their dunya, but in the process they will destroy the deen. Because anytime you have love of dunya, you're going to have enmity of religion. Because these are just the way things happen in the world. Love of dunya cannot coexist with love of religion. Love of dunya is an enemy of love of religion. Proper implementation of religion is at odds with indulgence in the dunya. These are not things that can coexist. These are mutually exclusive things. Love of dunya excludes the love of the akhirah. The love of the akhirah excludes the love of the dunya. So this is why we say, for example, the sick person, the dead person spiritually, the dead. We have three broad categories in terms of spiritual health. One we say is death. That's one of the categories of your spirituality in terms of the health of a person's spirituality. One is that he's completely dead. He's done. Khalas, he's dead. And that is somebody who has no love of akhirah left, is complete love of dunya. Where the mind is preoccupied with dunya all the time, and there's not even a small amount of love of Allah Azza wa Jalla left. That person is dead. To bring them back is a very, very difficult task. When you be in that spiritual coma for years, there's still hope, but it's very slim. And then somebody who's spiritually healthy. So this person is healthy, is a person who has no love of dunya. It's hard to achieve. So if somebody says he has no love of dunya, that's how the spiritual doctors, that's how they test them. Now the physical doctors ask you to cough and they put that thing in your heart. The spiritual doctor does it. Do you love dunya? If you love dunya, then you're sick. So most people are in between. That's why we say most people are spiritually sick, because they have both. They have a love of dunya, they have a love of akhirah, and there's a constant battle between the two. Those are unhealthy people, but there's still enough health that they can continue living. So they're not chronic, they still have some, so they can go on living and stuff. There's still hope for those people. So because they're himman, because the objective, the aim, the goals, the preoccupation of the minds of these leaders will only be dunya. They must, in order to fulfill those objectives, in order to be as indulgent as they want to be in the dunya, they would necessarily have to be enemies of the religion. And so this is why in a lot of the countries that I can see a lot of them already thinking about, where the destitutes are now the leaders and they are raising to build tall buildings, you can't think about them being supporters of the religion. They're not people who support religion in any way. But they are people who are at the forefront of destroying the very foundations of the religion. So they will change the laws because the laws will prevent them from indulging in dunya. If they want to consume alcohol, not alcohol, intoxicants, and the religion says no, then they're enemies of that ruling. If they want to have zina and just enjoy that type of indulgence, and the religion says no, they become an enemy of that hukum. If they want to indulge in riba, and the religion says no, then they become an enemy of that hukum. So you will find that a lot of the ahkam that restrain them from doing the things they want to do, they will be enemies of those ahkam. And so eventually will become enemies of the religion itself. So, يَتَقَاوَلُونَ فِي الْبُنْيَانِ. Not from this hadith, but since the hadith talks about it, the hukum shari. So we used to ask, what is the ruling of the sharia concerning building big buildings? We say to build a building beyond what is needed is makruh according to the sharia. Some of the ulama say it's haram. In the Shafi'i school, we say it is makruh. It is legally offensive to build a building beyond what is needed in any direction. Is it upwards, or horizontal, or vertical? It doesn't matter. To build beyond what you need is makruh. And we've seen what that type of building and that level of industrialization has caused the planet. Now we're dealing with that, the fallout of this type of pursuits. So according to the Sharia, it is makruh. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ didn't build. He didn't build. A hadith said the Prophet ﷺ didn't lay one brick on another brick.
That's a simple dwelling, please clear.
It includes dwelling there. To build beyond what you need is makruh. Huh? No, not that it can't be, it could be. Can't, in the language of Sharia, can't indicates tahrim. It indicates prohibition. And must indicates that something is wajib. Shouldn't indicate something is makruh, and should indicates something is mustahab. So if we say can't, we're immediately saying it is haram. So no, it's not haram. If somebody said they shouldn't, then that's a different thing. They shouldn't mean is it makruh or should be avoided. Either makruh or khilaf al-awla. No, it could be, but yeah, there are problems with that. I'll talk about that particular thing at the end. Yeah, so the Prophet ﷺ didn't build. And even when Jibreel ﷺ came down and gave the Prophet ﷺ specific instructions for the masjid. The masjid that was built in Madina, the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, there were specific instructions given to him by Jibreel ﷺ concerning the dimensions, this is my language, the specifications of that building. How high should it be? How wide should it be? Whether they should put a roof on it or not. When the Prophet died, and it was only partially roofed. He didn't build. And it's important because his civilization was not a civilization of buildings. The Prophet came and he constructed. And when you say constructed, he built one of the greatest civilizations in human history. Islam is one of the greatest civilizations in human history. But the athar, the remains of that civilization, the manifestations of that civilization is not in buildings. The civilization of Islam is not reflected in buildings. The way many other civilizations, their achievements are reflected in their buildings. We can go, we can visit what they call today the ruins of those civilizations. They're just big, tall, empty, magnificent buildings, strong because it withstood centuries of varying weather and all of that, and it still stands, but that's it. We don't know the ideas of those civilizations, we no longer have the morality of those, we have nothing left except the buildings. When the Prophet ﷺ came, he was not focusing on building a civilization that would be empty structures. Nobody cares about structures. They're great to look at. They don't do much beyond that. They're magnificent. But the civilization of the Prophet ﷺ is a civilization of ilm. It's a civilization of spirituality, it's a civilization of morality, it's a civilization of akhlaq. And so for every Muslim that implements his sunnah, every Muslim that learns his teachings, every Muslim that make a sajda and make a ruku'ah, they are manifesting the greatest civilization ever in human history. That's how he built his civilization. Where everybody is an artist that demonstrates the civilization of the Prophet ﷺ. Those other civilizations of other people, one artist, a few artists, a few architects, a few painters came together and did something, and that's the greatest manifestation of their civilizations. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people, carriers of those civilizations. For the Muslims, if you're 1 billion people, you're 1 billion carriers of a civilization. Everybody says La ilaha illallah. Everybody that wears a turban and a hat, everybody that makes a sajda, everybody that says Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, everybody that, all of that, in every sunnah. So his civilization is as manifest today as it was during his time. Because it was not a civilization of structures and buildings. It was a civilization of Iman, a civilization of Ihsan, and a civilization of Islam. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So, يَتَطَاوَلُونَ فِي الْبُنْيَانِ. They would be building big buildings. And so those are the signs that the Prophet ﷺ gave to the companions radiallahu ta'ala anhum, because we said that those were the closest ones to them. Okay, these are the ones, or at least some of them, one of them would be one of the signs that they would witness. Some of the ulama say one of them was close to them and the other was closer to the Sa'ah. The Prophet ﷺ gave two. One of them is one that the companions radiallahu anhum would witness, and the other is one that they wouldn't witness. So one of them in the hadith is a sign for the early part of the ummah, and one of them is a sign for the later part of the ummah. So the first one is one witnessed by the companions radiallahu anhum as a miracle, as a testimony to his truth. They didn't need any more. They saw everything about you. But when we are reading this, we can see, the companions experienced one of this. And then when we look at others, we're saying we are experiencing one of this. So one of them, some of the ulama say, one of the signs is for the early part of the ummah, one is for the later part of the ummah. But anyway, he only mentioned these two signs, but there are many other signs, and there are many books written on the signs of Yawm al-Akhir. We should read them because it's a lot of them are astonishing. Exact description of some of the things that we are seeing and we are experiencing, and the companions had no, I don't want to say they had no idea, but they wouldn't have seen it as manifest as we are seeing it. A lot of the signs. And then Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu said, ثُمَّ انْطَلَقَ. Then this person left. فَلَبِثْتُ مَنِيًّا. And I was left baffled. Some of the ulama say based on the narration of Ibn Hibban, radiallahu anhu, that he was unsure who this person was for 3 days. فَلَبِثْتُ مَلِيًّا, I was astonished and was left baffled for 3 days. Some of the narrations said that the person got up, he left, and then the Prophet ﷺ said, go call him back, and when the companions went, there's nobody to be seen. And then he said, إِنَّهُ جِبْرِيلٌ أَتَاكُمْ يُعَلِّمُكُمْ دِينُكُمْ, that it was Jibreel who came to teach you your religion. So this hadith, this one in the narration of Sahih of Imam Muslim, radiallahu anhu, says that Umar ibn Khattab said, لَبِثْتُ مَلِيًّا. Ibn Hibban said 3 days. The narration of Ibn Hibban said 3 days. Another narration said right away the Prophet ﷺ went to call him, he wasn't there, and he informed the people. How do we reconcile between the narration that says 3 days and the narration that says it was immediate? Some of the ulama say that Umar ibn Khattab, one of the ways they reconcile between the two narrations is say that Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu left. After this event, the man left and Umar left. So the narration that said the man left, the Prophet ﷺ said, called him back, they didn't find him, the Prophet ﷺ said, it's Jibreel. Some of the ulama say Umar left also. So the part where the Prophet ﷺ said, call him back, he didn't come, then the Prophet ﷺ said it was Jibreel, Umar was not there to witness that, and he was only informed 3 days later. So this is how they reconcile between the two narrations. So not all of the companions waited 3 days, just Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and the other companions were informed right away. And based on the other narration where they went to call him back and he was not there. That's just one way of doing reconciliation between the two narrations, which is something that when we're looking at different ahadith, the priority is always to keep, if the sanad is sahih, if the chain of narrations of the different ahadith are verified, the priority is always trying to keep both. Or if there are 3 different, always to keep all 3. So if there's a way of reconciling between them and keeping all and without disregarding any, then that is always prior than to keep one and disregard another. So that's why they made that reconciliation between the two narrations. Imam Ibn Hajar al-Haytami rahimahullah ta'ala said that based on the hadith, it is possible, we can say the following: whoever implements Islam and Iman as described in the hadith is a mu'min kamil, is a complete believer. And whoever neglects both, what is described in the hadith for Islam and for Iman, whoever neglects both is a complete kafir. It's the opposite. Not that there's anything like an incomplete kafir, but he's trying to say it's the opposite. One is a complete mu'min, one is a kafir. And whoever neglects Islam only, based on the description of the hadith, and whoever gives up the outward aspect of the sharia without denying that any of these things are, that any of them is wajib, then that person is a Muslim but a fasiq. He's a wicked, but still a Muslim according to Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. According to the mainstream belief, they are still Muslims. And except I think Ahmad ibn Hanbal, his madhab is that whoever gives up salah, even if they maintain that it is wajib, is a kafir. If somebody doesn't pray, then if someone doesn't pray, he is a, or she is a kafir, according to Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Because of the hadith in Nama, what is between us and the kafir, and the mushrik is salah. So if we leave off salah, then we become like the mushrik. There's nothing that separates us. And that's his argument. And whoever neglects Iman only, but implements Islam, whoever Iman that is described in the Hadith, belief in Allah and the angels and all, but they do what is described in the Hadith as being Islam, Salah, Zakat, Sawm, Hajj, then that person is a munafiq. So outwardly they are considered Muslims. We apply Sharia to them because they pray and they fast and all of that. But if they do not believe in the Arkan Iman, then inwardly they are not believers. In the Akhirah they are not believers. So these are the munafiqs. Then we go to the following hadith, which is hadith number 3. So, hadith number 3, Al-Imam Nawawi rahimahullah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, عن عبد الرحمن عبد الله بن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عن أبي عن أبي عبد الرحمن عبد الله بن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله تعالى عنهما قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول بني الإسلام على 5 شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا رسول الله وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة وحج البيت وصوم رمضان. So he said this hadith is reported by Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu wa arda. Ibn Umar, one of the famous companions who accepted Islam also when he was a child, like Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So Ibn Umar also accepted Islam before he was 15 years old. He accepted Islam younger than that. And he even wanted to participate in some of the battles, and he was excluded because he was not yet a mature man. He was still a young boy. But as we said, at the beginning of Islam, it was permissible for Mumayyiz children to accept Islam, but later on it was mansukh, it was abrogated, and ahkam of the Sharia became related to bulugh and not tamyiz. So we mentioned that earlier. So Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu accepted Islam early. He was one of the great scholars among the companions. He's one of the mujtahid of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Mujtahid, one of the highest legal authorities from among the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Also a very, very, very pious person. He used to make a lot of Hajj and Umrah and all of these things. Reported that Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu made 60 Hajj. And he made Hajj 60 times. And he made Umrah over 100 times. And he would give a lot of sadaqah. It's a lot of charity. He was known for charity. And he was known for giving charity from the best of his wealth. And the things that he considered the best of his possessions, those were the things that he would give in sadaqah. Because of the ayah of the Quran, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. You would never achieve birr. Birr could mean piety, but according to majority of the Mufassirun, birr in the ayah means Jannah. You would not attain Jannah, or you would not attain piety until you give from that which you love. Not the things that you don't want anymore, you give in sadaqah. That's not wrong, that's okay, because you're still giving, somebody's benefiting from it. What is wrong is if you specifically choose the things that you consider no good anymore in order to give sadaqah with. The ayah in the Quran says, وَلَا تَيَمَّمُوا الْخَبِيثَ مِنْهُ تُنْفِقُونَ وَلَسْتُمْ بِأَخْذِهِ وَلَسْتُمْ. Don't seek out the worst things to give a sadaqah that you yourselves would not use except if you're desperate. If you're in a desperate position, then you use it, but otherwise you won't. Those kind of things, don't particularly pick them up to give a sadaqah. But beyond that, if you don't need something, you give a sadaqah, that's okay. But Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma would find the things that he loves the most. And when we say تُنْفِقْ مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ, it's not only about wealth. It's about anything. It's about your time. People value their time more than they like their things. So spend of that and give that to people. Ilm, knowledge. For everything there is sadaqah. And the sadaqah of the alim is to give ilm, to give knowledge. That's sadaqah. If somebody likes ilm, then give that. So whatever it is that you like. And so Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu used to do that a lot. And he used to, as we mentioned before, follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in an extreme, when I say extreme, not in a negative way, but his following of the sunnah was at the highest of levels. Everything, if he could do every movement like the Prophet ﷺ, then he would do every movement like the Prophet ﷺ. He was extremely meticulous in his practice of the sunnah. So Ibn Umar, just again, out of the companions that we mentioned, read about them because they are our exemplars. We have, and one of the things that we do in tarbiyah to teach children is that children should be exposed to a lot of the stories of the companions. Read companions, stories of the companions to your children, bedtime stories rather than Humpty Dumpty and all the things mentioned. Read to them stories of the companions so that they grow up. There's one of this story, you remember when we used to study, one of the children was always at the masjid with his grandfather, he's always there, and so there's this program in the masjid, and the Shaykh who was conducting the program was asking the different children, like, what do you want to be, what do you want to be, what do you want to be? And they're giving the normal answers that children would give. And then he asked this child, what do you want to be? He said, I want to be a Sahabi. And so the Shaykh asked the father, why did he say that? And he said, we would read stories of the companions all the time. All the time. There's reference to the companions of the Prophet. So anything, like for example, if they cook pumpkin or they cook squash or something like that, they'll bring up that hadith of Ibn Abbas and when he saw the Prophet eating pumpkin and he didn't like it, and the Prophet ate it and he said right away, I loved it. Stuff like that. There's always a reference to the companions. So the scheme of reference that the child had in his mind, only companions. So that's all he thought about. All of the examples, all the stories that he knew, all of the examples that the parents made accessible to him were of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. So what he looked up, what he wanted to be was what he was told. The people that were made as heroes and role models to him by his parents were the people he wanted to be like. This is extremely important. I don't need to go on a rant about what kids are exposed to in our times, and the people they see as role models, and the people they are in the celebrity culture that's rampant now. That kids are involved, it's so toxic and disgusting. When you think about it, you want to barf. It's so disgusting. That's all they talk about. It's all they do. It's all and it's pushed on them. Their exercise books. They have exercise books in which they take notes of Islamiyat, and at the front they have pictures of celebrities. And, it's so nasty. At the front you have a Hannah Montana. I don't know if she's still relevant. You have a Hannah Montana, and then your first page is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's so nasty to even think about. Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala, I said I wasn't going to rant, and I'm straight on a rant. Imam al-Ghazali in the Ihya Ulumuddin, the section on Tarbiyah, he said a parent should not allow his child to see the face of a fasiq. The face of a wicked person. Of a fasiq. A fasiq is a Muslim. A fasiq is a bad Muslim. Much less to see the face of a kafir. Because it makes an imprint. The image makes an imprint on the mind, and we don't know what it does when it's imprinted on the mind. We don't know if it's going to make a positive impact, it's going to make a negative impact, it's going to become something that they want to emulate, maybe something. We don't know what it's going to do. So what do you do if you have no idea what the impact is? Avoid it completely. much less what we do anyway. So, read about the companions radiallahu ta'ala. Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrated, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, بُنِيَ الْإِسْلَامُ عَلَى خَمْسٍ شَهَادَةِ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَأَنَّ مُحَمَّدًا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. That Islam was built on 5 pillars. The metaphor is clear. It's like a building. He's making an analogy of Islam to a building, and the 5 things that support this building are Shahada, Salat, Zakat, Sawm, Hajj. So he said that Bunya al-Islamu ala khams, that Islam is built upon 5 pillars. So majority of the ulama, how do they interpret the hadith? These are the 5 pillars of the religion. Some of the ulama of Ishara means that they are interpreting the hadith not in a technical way, but they're interpreting it in an esoteric way. And we have to be careful with loose. We have a lot of people do that today because it's just cool, it's a trend. We have to be careful with it. But there are people who interpret things with ishara based on very solid principles. Some of those ulama say that what the hadith means, or what the hadith is really emphasizing, is not that Islam is constituted by 5 pillars. Is that a person's Islam, an individual's Islam, your practice of Islam, every individual's practice of Islam starts out with 5 basics and then they build on those 5 basics. So when you say Bunya al-Islamu ala khams, every Muslim would have these 5 basics. Every Muslim would have La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. But some people, everybody's Islam, meaning everybody's religiosity, is basically how much they build upon those 5 basics. So some people, all they have in terms of ma'rifah, in terms of their knowledge of Allah, is I believe in Allah. What else do you know about Allah Azza wa Jalla beyond that? Whatever experience do you have of Allah? Nothing. Just that I know His name is Allah, He has other names, He has other sifat, He is powerful, we believe. Like that's the limit of their knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jalla. While other people who build upon that, their ma'rifah is at a higher level. Some people are at a level of experience where they have an experiential knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jalla. They can tell you that Allah is qawi because they've experienced the quwwah. Allah is beautiful because they've experienced that beauty. Like at a level of consciousness, they relate to it at a level of we know it not only by seeing it, by feeling it. There's the levels of ma'rifah. Imam al-Ghazali gave a parable for the levels of ma'rifah, where he said that some people, their ma'rifah, their knowledge is like somebody who's informed by somebody that they trust that there's a fire. You trust the person never lies. You don't have to reason to believe they're lying now. And they said, oh, there's a fire somewhere. Okay, yeah, you believe it. That's like the Muslims who were told about Allah and they believe it because everybody they trust and stuff like that. Some people's ma'rifah is like the person who saw the fire. He's not only somebody who's informed, he saw it with his own eyes, he believed it's real. Why? Because I saw it. But the eyes can fool you. You can see something that looks like fire, right? This is why illusionists can fool people, because they can make it look like what it's not. So they have a higher level than those who were only informed. But the one who went and touched the fire, was burnt by it and felt the heat, knows of its reality more than the one who saw and more than the one who was informed. So some of the believers, their knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal is like they have seen Him. They have had mushahada, where the veils of the dunya were lifted for them, and they saw the dunya for what it is, and they saw Allah Azza wa Jal, not physically, because there's no physicality to Allah Azza wa Jal, but they had mushahada. And some Muslims, the Anbiya, and some of the higher levels of the Anbiya, they have an experiential knowledge of Allah. So, and Salah, some people pray the basics, some people pray just to get it, just for it to be valid, and they don't have to repeat it. but it's nothing beyond just the actions for them. Other people build upon the fard, so their fard becomes perfect for them. It's a high spiritual activity. Other people build not only on the fard, but they build on the fard by doing a lot of sunnah. Some people can only do the mu'akkadat, some can do more than the mu'akkadat, and then some can do extra, and then some can do mutlaq. Some people do mutlaq sunnah. Mutlaq sunnah is that you do a sunnah whenever you feel it. Because you're all over the place, you have nothing to do. Two persons have nothing to do. One of them take out their phone, they're on WhatsApp, the other one pray 2 rak'ah. Like that, they're building upon the basics. And like that for the other 5. But we said the general interpretation of the hadith is Islam is constituted by 5 main things. Why these 5? There are other things that are wajib in Islam. I mean, every other hukum that we have to do is wajib. Why these 5? So some of the ulama say because these 5 are fard ayn, and it being fard, once you fulfill the condition, is never dropped. Once you fulfill the conditions of wujub, these 5 have to be implemented by all Muslims, and they never stop until the Sharia gives an excuse. And the main one, which is salah, doesn't even have an excuse. Salah only drops when you lose consciousness. I will continue the next session, inshallah. هذا وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.